This is the Get Your Ass to Work podcast. This is episode number 40, and today we're talking about the customer is not always right. Look, your wife's not always right. Your boss is not always right. Your girlfriend is not always right. Even your dog is not always right. But the popular saying that most bosses and anybody in an authoritative position who's too much of a pussy to stand up and actually say the right thing to a customer or lacks the communication skills and persuasion skills is going to tell their employees to tell everyone, no matter what, to agree with them and tell them that they're right. So a customer comes up who's flat out wrong about a certain product or starts an argument at the cash register, and you try to present a different reality to them, and your boss comes by and says, don't argue with them. Just give them anything they want. And you know what that creates? That creates somebody walking out the door with a false belief that they were in the right when they actually weren't, and it perpetuates bad fucking behavior. It just does. So look, here's what we're going to talk about today, because telling your customer that they're always right does not work in the negotiation world of real estate. It doesn't work when you are a fiduciary to your client, when you have a legal obligation to steer them in the best direction possible. You cannot just tell people that they're right all the time. So what we're going to talk about today is a quick, easy, simple technique to get around those problem customers without having to tell them that they're right. So before we get started, hey, I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy, my friend, Sergeant Weaver of the U.S. Marine Corps, who came up to me during a workout the other day in the middle, and he was like, hey, man, I just wanted to say, I listened to your podcast, and, it helps me during, my recruitment, because that's what he does. He's a recruiter, helps me at my job. And I was like so blown away because I forget that people actually listen to this podcast. I put the podcast out and I literally forget that I actually do it or that there are people that listen. And every once in a while I check the numbers just to see which episode maybe people are more interested in, because I want to put out content that's interesting, that people actually give a shit about. And sometimes I don't give a shit and I'll just put out whatever I feel like putting out. But for the most part, I want to put out something that entertains me, entertains you guys, and has some item of value that you can use in the real world. So let's get on to today's topic, and know the customer is not always right. In fact, a lot of times they're just flat out fucking wrong. They've got an attitude problem, and just to weasel your way out of the situation, like most people do, and most of corporate America is taught, is to just agree with the customer, tell them that they're right, and make them happy under any circumstance, no matter what. Send them out the door happy with a smile on your face. And I'm here to tell you, maybe that works if you're serving tables at Chili's and you can just write off the $18 meal where they came in, they said that the steak sucked and the shrimp wasn't cleaned good enough, and you're just going to make them as happy as possible, give them a free meal with a fucking sundae, and send them out the door and say, please come back, even though they're going to give you a negative review. In the world of real estate, when you're a fiduciary and you have a duty to lead your client to the best place possible, that doesn't always work. So here's the quick thing that you guys can always use with any client, no matter what they say to you, even when you know it's absolutely dead wrong. What you have to do is empathize with them. You don't sympathize with them, you empathize with them. And what that means is you just understand where they're coming from, and you communicate that you understand where they're coming from. Because here's what most people do. A client's going to come up and they're going to say, hey, Dan, I want to put my house up for sale and I want to price it $100,000 over market value. And I know it's going to sell because I know my house is worth more than the home next door that just sold for $100,000 less. And you're going to know that that's flat out wrong. And that home is not going to sell for that amount of money. And here's what most agents do. They get combative. Right away, they go into combat mode, which is, okay, well, I'm going to have to teach them why, that they're wrong. And they're going to be like, no, the house isn't going to sell because here's the comp showing that it's not going to sell for this amount of money. I think that's the wrong approach. The right approach is to be empathetic of their idea and their situation, which means that, number one, you listen to them. You understand why they think it is. So a very real conversation that you could have in this situation is, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, I understand why you think you want this much money for your home. And you know what? If this were my home, I would think the same thing, that my home is definitely better than the home next door. However, here are the comps that we have to work with. And under any circumstance, I would not be able to realistically get you an appraisal that is going to match the price of this home and what you want, because the home next door only sold for this much. There's no way I'm going to be able to get an appraisal. How would you guys like to move forward? Put the ball back into their court. What you've done here is you've said, hey, I understand why you guys think that price. I would want that same price too if this was my home. However, here's the alternate reality. And the alternate reality is there's no way I can get this price and get it to appraise. It's out of my control. It's up to an appraiser. And from that way, you are no longer going to be the enemy. In a way, you've made the appraiser the enemy. And if they're just not willing to work with you, maybe it's not the right client for you to work with. If they're not going to come down to a price that's going to help them get their property sold, they may not be the right person to work with. This works for anyone. This could be a drunk person at a bar who's upset that somebody is hitting on his girlfriend. I mean, look, I'm just making this shit up as I go. But you know what? Instead of, some guys getting loud and like, hey, you're talking to my girlfriend, hey, you know what, man, I'd be mad too if somebody was talking to my girlfriend. Check this out. It probably wasn't the right thing of me to do, but guess what? I am going to go out to the other side of the bar. You guys have a great night. Love to buy you a beer. Round of drinks on me. Get yourself out of that situation before you get your head fucking smashed into a curb, right? Things like that. Look, you will always agree with people. This works when you're prospecting on the phone. Don't ever, ever, ever be combative with a customer on the phone unless you want to lose that customer, because trying to bulldog your way through any sort of negotiation is going to be a losing battle. Even if you're 100% right, nobody likes to feel like they're wrong. So you have to be empathetic to whatever situation that they're in. You have to understand them and you have to be on their side, even though they are wrong. You can't make them wrong. If you want people to agree with you and if you want to be persuasive, they have to feel like you are on their side. That's it, guys. There's really no other way that you guys can persuade people and be convincing of somebody and get them to do something. You can force somebody to do something, but what kind of job do you think you're going to get? You're going to get shit fucking work and you're going to be disappointed by the results. You have to want them to do something, right? So you get people that say, oh, Dan, you know what? I would never work for you because you are too much of a bully. And I've had people tell me that before, not in exactly those words. They called me something a little bit more colorful, like you're just a fucking asshole. I'd never want to work with you in the same office. And here's what I have to say about that. Be like, yeah, you know what? I agree. I can be an asshole, and I can absolutely see why you're saying that. And in fact, if I were you, I'd probably say that about myself. But also, I want you to know that I care very deeply for everybody who works with me. And the reason why I may come off as being too tough or being a bully is because I want success for the people who work with me. Sometimes I want it more than they want it for themselves. And that may require me to come off a little bit stern and a little bit hard. So let's talk about how you guys can come work for me and be successful at the same time. And, I'll work on not being such an asshole. You see how that is much more effective than saying, I'm an asshole. Well, you know what? Then you don't have to work here and fuck you and, get out of the office. I mean, it doesn't fucking work, guys. So use this in any situation. You can use it with your wife. You can use it with your children. You can use it with your boss, especially your boss, because you never want to make your boss wrong. You just want to be able to change their reality. So if you guys have any questions, you can always get a hold of me. www.danpeters.com. www.danielpuz.work. And if you guys want to talk real estate, or you have questions about how to get your license, or you're a new agent, or you're a home seller, or you need advice on how to sell a home or how to buy a home or a probate, or you got a sticky situation, you're behind on your mortgage payments, that's what we specialize in. We specialize in crawling 300 yards through shit and coming out clean on the other side, or whatever they said in Shawshank Redemption. I just saw that movie the other night. I thought that's the funniest fucking line ever. But that's what we do. People get themselves in sticky situations, nasty, deep shit, and we help people come out on the other side with money in their pockets. So always available and always willing to help anybody who actually needs it and is ready to take some action. Give us a call or hit me up online, www.danielpuz.work. This has been episode number 40, and we will see you guys next week.